I don't know why yours isn't on.
Well, Lucy was right. We'll do this one. Okay. So call the meeting to order. Thank you all for joining us today. And I'm going to pass it to our Executive Director, Susan Branson.
Right. I have a few introductory comments, really just to set the stage for what we're doing here today. So first, we do want to thank you for attending the first of two hearings that are required on the draft 2018 Interregional Transportation Improvement Program, otherwise referred to as the ITIP. The ITIP is a very critical component of the State Transportation Improvement Program, as it provides funding for projects to improve state highways, projects to improve the intercity passenger rail system, and projects to improve interregional movement of people, vehicles, and goods. Government Code Section 14526 requires that not later than October 15th of each odd-numbered year, and after consulting with the transportation planning agencies, county transportation commissions, and transportation authorities, Caltrans shall submit to the Commission the draft 5-year Interregional Transportation Improvement Program. The law further requires that on or before November 15th of each odd-numbered year, the Commission shall hold at least 2 public hearings, one in Northern California and the other in Southern California, to attempt to reconcile any objections by any member of the public or other stakeholders to the draft Interregional Transportation Improvement Program. SB1 stabilized the price-based excise tax effective fiscal year 2019-20. This really is, the stabilization is just critical at this point in time. Last year, as you all know, we had the funding shortfall. We were deprogramming projects. This time around for the STIP is positive. We look forward to this hearing today, hearing from Caltrans and hearing from the stakeholders, your interests and your perspectives. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa to provide some additional remarks.
Thank you, Susan. After the ITIP hearings, Caltrans will prepare the final ITIP. The final ITIP shall include a summary of the major comments received and responses to those comments. The final ITIP, along with the RTIPs, are due to the Commission by December 15th of 2017. Staff will compile all the proposals into one document that will be presented at the STIP hearings in January and February. Staff will publish recommendations for the 2018 STIP no later than February 28th, 20 days in advance of the STIP adoption, which will take place in March at the March Commission meeting. The department submitted the draft ITIP to the Commission on October 13th, 2017. The draft ITIP proposes the reprogramming of projects from the 2016 STIP. Of the new interregional shares identified in the fund estimate, the department proposes to fund cost increases to projects already programmed, restore projects or components of a projects that were deleted in the 2016 STIP, program new rail projects, and program new components to existing projects or brand new projects. The department is proposing to program $82,390,000 above their target. It should be noted that unless the Commission programs less in other regions, the department may not be able to program above their target shares. This concludes my remarks. And unless you have specific questions for staff, staff recommends, Madam Chair, open the hearing for the ITIP, for the Northern California hearing for the ITIP.
All right, so then we are going to open the hearing, but that still doesn't work, so we'll go back over here. Open the hearing. We'll go to item number 3, the presentation of the draft 2018 ITIP. And Bruce, you're up.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate everybody hanging around here this afternoon. I'll try to be fairly quick in my presentation and remarks, but happy to take any questions. I won't rush it, but I won't linger. All commas, decimal points, and zeros in this document are pretty good, the ones we produced. So, I was going to look for my notes, they're right up there. So, I'm going to start off with a video explaining what interregional travel is in the context of this document, and so I'm going to sit to the side while this plays, and then I'll pick up after that. There should be an audio with this. Okay, the audio is music, so.
Just go ahead and hum.
You have to tell me so we can turn it on.
Oh. Nice, thank you. It's tough to get that transition in there. So that provided some of the context of what it is the ITIP is seeking to address. In that one video, we really purposely want to include in this. At the August commission meeting, there was a large vote for the Kramer Junction project, and you heard about that earlier in today's meeting regarding the right-of-way issues. And that is the piece of the Highway 58 that was fixed by the vote to approve the Kramer Junction project. And that was the kind of thing that we're trying to do with the ITIP in general, that these large interregional connectors that are principally two-lane connectors, that we're trying to upgrade them where we have situations like we do on Highway 58. So they are projects to improve state highways. They're projects to improve intercity passenger rail system and to improve the interregional movement of people, vehicles, and goods. This is per statute, so we often shorten it to people and goods because the vehicles are not the primary goal, but that is what's in statute. So the STIP itself is split. It's 25% that goes to the state through the ITIP, and the 75% that goes to the regional agencies for their use to come to the commission for approval on the projects that they are. The ITIP itself is, again, focused on the connectivity between the major regions of the state. Senate Bill, Senate Bill 1 restored funding that we had lost, which Susan had mentioned earlier in her remarks, and so this is, I'll show a slide here coming up. This is the funding from the beginning of the ITIP when SB 45 created the 25-75 split, and we began with an interregional transportation strategic plan. And you can see the enormous volatility in available ITIP shares, and when you're trying to plan projects and program projects with this kind of fluctuation in funding and the variability of the fund estimate, so you could take this for the entire STIP and project that, how that would go. So you could see last year the reductions that we did. This just represents the ITIP. So we deleted approximately $200 million in ITIP projects in 2016. And I know that was a great discomfort for the commission to have to take that action. And there was an additional $550 million in other projects. So in 2018, we have funding increase and stabilized with SB1. We didn't project out in the future, but what's really important going forward with SB1 and the stabilized funding, you won't see these wide variations in funding. So what we're able to do is plan going forward long term so that we can strategically identify and get projects ready for future funding phases with the expectation that the money will be there. Similarly, we can use these funding opportunities to prepare projects to compete for the competitive freight and congested corridors programs. So this stability provides us really great opportunities to consciously choose where we're going. By law, the ITIP has to be consistent with the Interregional Transportation Strategic Plan, which I'm holding up there, and the folks on the camera can see that perhaps instead of my not shiny back of my head. And so the commission has received this in the past and provided comments, and we'll be updating this again in the not terribly distant future. So it is required that it be consistent because it provides the framework for our decision making about which projects to select. And it is narrowed down. It's the interregional road system, which is a very large set of highway corridors in the state that are legislatively designated, and I believe there are 93 routes on that interregional road system. And within that, there's a subset that are strategic interregional corridors. And I'll be showing you some maps of this in a little bit. So as Teresa mentioned, for the ITIP proposal we're going to be showing you here, we're proposing to fund cost increases on both rail and highway projects as that first priority, then reinstate projects that were deleted and that still have merit for funding that were deleted from the 2016 STIP. What's important to recognize is that in 2016, normally we would have escalated the costs from the 2014 STIP to account for the passage of time for the cost increases. We did not do that in 2016 because we didn't want to have to delete more projects than we had. So we postponed the updating of the cost increases to the next time we'd have a positive STIP cycle so that we didn't have to delete projects. So it's actually been a 4-year time period since any of the projects referenced above in the first bullet item for the 2016 SHOP actually had their costs increased or adjusted for cost increases. So, and then after we've taken care of what we consider this basic business, we can look to turning to program new projects or new components of projects that were already underway. So these are the projects that we had cost increases updated, and smack dab in the middle is Kramer Junction, and that was the vote of the last commission meeting. So this takes $123 million, and I'll be showing you as we go along out of the funding as we delete. So this is the interregional transportation system that has the priority corridors, and the little names there on the side with the hard to read from this size, little red areas, that's the location of the projects that had cost increases on them that we're carrying forward. Oh, I can go back if need be. So again, these don't represent these corridors. These don't represent all of the eligible corridors within the interregional road system. It represents those that have the greatest value to the state in terms of broad interregional connectivity. There are others that are very important locally and also regionally and interregionally that are of smaller scale. But this is predominantly where the vast volume of travel happens on the interregional road system. So these are the projects we've restored back into the system by county and route number. And for our agencies who are here, very often or almost always, they are also partners on these projects, and they were also partners on the ones that we were making the cost adjustments. The only project I'm aware of on the list that is wholly funded through the ITIP was the Kramer Junction. And here again, we see the distribution of those projects throughout the state. You can see there are quite a few of them for the replacement that were in the valley that we're in now, from the southern Sacramento Valley all the way down San Joaquin, and then on the east side of the Sierra, as well as some on the coast. During that process, we strove not to delete rail projects. We wanted to keep that intact. Deleting a rail project, it could be very difficult to bring back in. As was referenced earlier in today's meeting, we're only partially in control of the kinds of investments and the timing that we can make on the rail system. So if we already have something that's been vetted and approved, we want to keep it in there. So these are the new rail projects that we're adding into proposing to add into the ITIP during this phase, and this shows their distribution with that famous multicolored map of, I don't remember how many quarters you mentioned, like 14. So we'll update this now that we have a state rail plan with new quartered graphics. So this was produced before that came forward. And then these are new components added to existing projects or new projects. So you can see that if you've looked at the earlier project list, there's tremendous consistency in the routes that you see that we're working on. And part of the thinking behind this is that, like we did with the Kramer Junction on Highway 58, we want to get some of these routes completed from the vision that was initiated in 1998 with the original ITSP and the splitting of the funds between the IP and the RIP funding. So that instead of continually sprinkling the funding around the state and they make everybody get a piece of it, these corridors, let's finish investing on them and get them completed so that they meet the concept and we get the full utility of our investments that we initiated. So Kramer Junction, which you saw that 2-lane section there, that's going to a 4-lane facility with the completion of the Kramer Junction. And it eliminates an at-grade highway crossing and an at-grade railroad crossing with BNSF Railroad, the one that goes up over to Tehachapi, an enormously busy railroad, that was an at-grade 2-lane highway. So we want to take care of those other kinds of corridors where we have this. And so these are the next set of projects that we have funding capacity for and that we want to pursue. Now, as Teresa pointed out, we are proposing programming more than we have for our target capacity, but less than what our maximum capacity was. And we understand that there's some risk in that all the agencies behind me and who are eagerly watching this at home and in their offices, that they may not deliver all of their STIP projects. So we may encounter that we have that capacity that we need. If we don't, we'll have to make some choices about which projects to delay. And if we come to those choices, we'll come back to the commission to assist in that decision-making process. But we wanted to be optimistic and get these going. We think they're very important, and the benefits to the communities that are located along these and the public who travel them are tremendous. And so these are those new projects. As you see, it's not a lot when you think about the entire state, but these routes, let me see if I can get to that final map. When you put all this together of these the routes, it really is a tremendous amount of investment that's sprinkled throughout the state that we're seeking to address at this point. Now I'll go backwards. So this then represents the funding, the total amounts coming from our proposal at this time for the ITIP in the different categories. This is a graphic just illustrating what our target was at essentially $28 million, and then what we're proposing and what our maximum was. So we recognize that range. And we are having people ask us, well, we'd really like our projects added to this and push us all the way to the maximum. But understanding that maximum is then coming out of other STIP funding if we go there. But if we turn out to have more capacity, we're happy to consider amending more into the ITIP. We also have something that was in the beginning of the ITIP program, the Advanced Project Development element. That lets us use the funding from future STIP cycles to bring it into the current fiscal cycle in any one of the years we would choose to apply it. So the STIP is normally, it's not normally, it is a 5-year funding program. So what this does, it lets us take from the years 6 and 7, a theoretical year 6 and 7 of what we would expect to be getting in year 6 and 7, advance up to 25% of that revenue of the 2 years into the current STIP cycle so we can get projects started, which would be the environmental and project approval phases, and then the PS&E phase, or the design phase, that we can go ahead and initiate those phases on projects. So we're proposing to do that with these funds, this amount of funds. We had a capacity of $86 million. We're proposing to use $48 million of that capacity, leaving a balance of $38 million. Did I say 38 million twice? I meant 48 and 38. So with this understanding that we're borrowing, or we're not borrowing, we're advancing 25% of ITIP shares. And then you can think of it that we're using that money much earlier in the process. And it could be, if we invested this money now, it could be as much as 6 years earlier than it would be available otherwise. So the cost of the work we're going to be doing now with these advanced funds is less than it'll be in 6 years from now. So these projects, again, are very consistent with the investments we've been making on the corridors. On the Highway 99, you saw a lot of investment there. The Lake 29 projects, we've been investing piece by piece to try to address that. It has equally dramatic video footage if we were to take it there of the issues there. New to this would be the San Mateo 101 project. And this project is very important, and this is going back to where I mentioned earlier of using this opportunity to address the needs for the competitive funding programs, and specifically in this case, the congested corridors. As I understand it, for the Highway 101, which is mentioned in Senate Bill 1 as being an example of the kinds of projects they wanted to have come forward for the congested corridor. This is one of those projects, one of the 5 corridors, and that the private sector helped fund, or primarily funded, the environmental phase of this project and is nearing completion. And so we're coming forward now with ITIP funding to do the next phase, the PS&E, through this, our ability to advance the project so that we can accelerate its delivery and get it ready to compete for the funding round that's about to come up later this fiscal year through the congested corridors. So this is part of our effort to be responsive to the call in the legislation to actually go after and accelerate the delivery of these projects.
Can I?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So the 18 million here identified would be through ITIP funds.
Yes.
With the potential for congested corridor funds on top of that.
The idea, it could be that if it costs more to design than that, but the idea is to prepare this project to compete for congested corridors for the actual construction phases and right-of-way if that.
Yeah, I didn't mean more for PD&E. I meant more for the project itself.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Exactly. For the actual going out and constructing the project. So this is the distribution of those projects on the corridor map. As you can see, all of these projects are actually aligning in these strategic corridors. They're not showing up in the places in between. And that's the whole kit and caboodle, absent the rail projects. It'll be too complicated if I add rail lines in that map. So comments are due to us, to the department, no later than November 13th. which was 1 month and a couple of days from when we posted the document and distributed it to the regional agencies. I'll also be giving a presentation to the Native American Advisory Committee meeting at their next regularly scheduled meeting, and we've distributed to the tribal governments that are a member of that for them to have the opportunity to provide input as well. So these projects not only serve the communities and the industries that you saw in the PowerPoint slide video, but it also serves a lot of Native American tribal governments and their citizens, because a lot of them are located in these rural areas. So people can submit their comments to us via email or in written response, and we will respond to those comments as an attachment to the final document. And we're also, of course, taking testimony at the commission meeting, and we'll document that and respond as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and if not, I will give the podium up to the speakers, or however you'd like to proceed.
Do we have any questions from the commission?
I do.
Okay.
I'll come after.
You'll come after the public comments. Okay, then let's move to the public comment portion of this hearing. I'd like to call up first Ivan Garcia and Jody Jones from Butte County.
Good afternoon. My name is Ivan Garcia, or Ivan. It's fine.
Sorry.
No, it's.
I know
I've been called worse. And that's just at home. I work for the Butte County Association of Governments, and with me today is our Vice Chair, Jody Jones, and she'll speak first.
Good afternoon. I'm here to support Caltrans ITIP proposal, which includes 3 State Route 70 projects in Butte County. Caltrans, BCAG, and the CTC began the long road to connect the urbanized area of Chico to Sacramento and its continuous freeway and expressway system way back in 1988. And much progress has been made, but we still have a remaining gap of rural 2-lane highway in a heavy agricultural region, subject to head-on collisions. The section of Highway 70 between Oroville and Marysville has seen 11 fatalities just in 2017 alone, and none of those accidents involved drugs or alcohol. When I was the Caltrans District 3 director, I drove this road twice a day, every day for 10 years. Drivers would often get frustrated at the slow-moving traffic on the 2-lane road with almost no passing opportunities. This results in behaviors that cause accidents. The last accident resulted in the death of Paul Inman, a Caltrans maintenance supervisor who lived in Paradise and was commuting to work on the same road that I used to travel. A total of 33 people have lost their lives since 2010. Safety warrants have been met along the entire stretch of State Route 70 from Oroville to Marysville. And we now have a rare opportunity to complete this corridor for safety, regional connectivity, and goods movement. It really is time to get the job done, and I urge you to adopt the Highway 70 projects as proposed by Caltrans. Thank you.
The only other thing I want to add is, in addition to the projects in Butte County, staff will be making a recommendation to the board to approve the programming of $4 million of our regional share funds for Highway 70 in Yuba County to expand the scope of their safety project to look at the same 5-lane footprint, 2 through lanes and a center turn lane. So we'll be taking that to the board next week. Other things that we're doing is actively pursuing federal funds, and we'll be going after fast lane and working with SACOG in Yuba County and try to get the corridor done.
Any questions for Yvonne? No. On this project?
Yes, just a note for the folks playing the home game is there's actually a very good video that Yvonne shared with me earlier on the Butte County Association of Governments website at www.bcag.org. It's less than 2 minutes, and it's very interesting on State Route 70. I would just recommend that.
Thank you. And I left with staff a brief 3-page 11 by 17s of our, oh, you got it, okay, of our lobbying efforts and what we've been doing since 1988. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bruce?
Yes, hi. I realize I'm not public comment, but I did want to add to what Jody and Yvonne mentioned, because Jody mentioned that the entire corridor has met safety warrants. And what that means is that we have a shop project or a series of shop projects from Oroville to Marysville to address safety issues, which can only make improvements to the existing facility. It can't add lanes. So what it's proposing to do is put standard shoulders on, a standard median width, and then take the current lanes to standard and address the drainage and other things like that. So for the actual capacity increasing aspect of that, that's the ITIP. So we're looking at the opportunity for this corridor to bundle the shop funding, the ITIP funding, the RIP money, and then other money that BCAG is pursuing with the federal government and other sources. So that we come into that corridor, we do it once, we do it right, and we leave it for 30 or 40 years other than routine maintenance. That's the strategy behind this corridor. Again, this is the kind of example, and that's the last piece of this entire corridor between Chico and Sacramento. So those are the kinds of things we're trying to do in the ITIP, are to complete these strategic corridors that make so much difference to the travelers in the community. This is also a very large agricultural region, a tremendous amount of farm commodities, so that's something that didn't come forward, that there are a lot of trucks on direct access. I won't make comments on everybody's, but this is one where the shop component is critical to the entire corridor effort.
We know you love them all, Bruce.
Thank you for that, Bruce.
Okay, next I'm going to ask Michael Zeller from the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, followed by Ron DeCarli from San Luis Obispo.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Again, I'm Michael Zeller with the Transportation Agency for Monterey County. Just wanted to thank Caltrans for preparing the draft ITIP and circulating it for everybody to review, and for the Commission for holding this hearing today. Our agency will be providing comments on the draft proposal and including a request for some of the unused ITIP advanced project development element funding in our 2018 RTIP for the US 101 South County Frontage Roads project. This project will construct frontage roads down either side of US 101 south of Salinas to Soledad in Monterey County. It's a key freight movement project for our region that will alleviate truck congestion as well as dangerous turning movements with trucks turning left across US 101. This project was included in for funding in our RTIP previously, but we removed it in 2016 to address the STIP shortfall. So we'll be looking to add it back into our 2018 RTIP, and this is coupled with $30 million for the project in our sales tax measure that was recently passed. However, we still need some additional funding for the environmental phase, so we'll be looking to partner with Caltrans on that through the ITIP. So thank you for the opportunity to provide comments today. Happy to take any questions.
All righty. We have Ron.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come before you in support of these ITIP recommendations. One of the key purposes of the ITIP is to improve interregional mobility for goods and people on highways of strategic importance. I think your staff recommendations, when you look at it in its entirety, is going a long ways towards meeting that purpose. We applaud Caltrans also in the equitable development of the Interregional Transportation Strategic Plan. You've identified 11 corridors that you've seen on that prior map, and you've identified projects throughout the entire state in those 11 corridors. I think that's really important. One of our key interests is the Central Coast, Central Valley, East-West connectors, as well as to a lesser degree on the Highway 101 North-South connectors. We also want to applaud Caltrans and the Commission for developing what we think is pretty effective 2018 STIP guidelines that we feel has been addressed very closely with a focus on performance measures and trying to bring forward some of the most effective projects, which I think are reflected in this document. We appreciate the opportunity to prioritize those projects first that were cut, in particular in our region on Highway 46, where we've been expanding Highway 46 to a 4-lane from 101 ultimate goal to I-5, where the 4 lanes is the Shalom portion, which was a $23 million shortfall. We appreciate in particular restoring projects that were deleted as a result of the cutbacks in funding. Those include the South Coast Highway 101 in Santa Barbara, that's part of our north-south corridor, Highway 101. We see it as a statewide system. We strongly support securing that funds for Santa Barbara as well. The Excelsior Expressway, Highway 41 in Fresno, again, part of this east-west connectors between the valley and the coast. And then importantly for us is the 4641Y. That's the at-grade intersection, 40 miles east of Paso Robles. It's an at-grade. We've been having a number of severe fatalities in that area, accidents 3 times the statewide average. This money restores the $25 million for right-of-way and in final engineering to get that project going. Under new programming focusing on interregional and gap closures, we think it's especially important with the projects defined. Of particular importance, again, is the 4641Y. With the prior action is the final engineering and right-of-way. This now provides the construction $111 million to eliminate that at-grade crossing and provide a grade-separated interchange. And then finally, the 46 Antelope grade, $16 million to begin the 4-lane east of the Y. We're currently going up that grade. You have heavy 18-wheel trucks driving the shoulder going up a 4-mile segment as cars are passing them. So we got some real safety issues there as well. We also support the intercity rail projects, $12.5 million for the Central Coast layover facility. As I mentioned earlier, I think that goes a long ways towards addressing our corridor. Last, we appreciate all the support from District 5, District 6, headquarters, Transportation Commission, and our elected officials, state and federal and local, on all the efforts on Highway 46. That's been a long effort since the 80s, where we initially started looking at a 4-lane segment from Highway 101 moving north, followed by passing lanes. In the 90s, a series of major fatalities resulting in the second Highway 4641 Safety Task Force, which developed the vision of moving forward that in the last 20 years we've been gradually moving. We've been working closely with state and federal, local to secure funding. We will continue to be working with our state and federal legislators to try and secure Tiger funding to complete this entire process. We strongly support your effort here. In terms of our support, kind of in those earlier years, we've had funding, state and federal support of about 23%. That level of support is dropping as we go further out, and we're trying to focus on some of the urban corridors. Our focus right now in our upcoming cycle is to fund the 46 East 101 interchanges, 46 West 101 interchanges, some of the interchanges now that are more in the urban area in partnership with our local jurisdiction. So again, we strongly support the staff recommendations identified here and urge your approval when that time comes. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I cue up Aaron Henke, Stacy Mortensen, and Jose Antonio Ramirez?
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for your time. My name is Aaron Henke. I'm a senior advisor for Assemblyman Jordan Cunningham, who represents California's 35th District, which encompasses San Luis Obispo County and a portion of Santa Barbara County. As the elected representative, well, I'm going to read a letter from the Assemblyman. As the elected representative for the 35th Assembly District, on behalf of both my constituents and all travelers on state highways on the Central Coast, I write in strong support of the draft Interregional Transportation Improvement Plan, or ITIP. To begin, please allow me to express my gratitude for your engagement and commitment to safe and efficient movement of goods and persons throughout California. I am very thankful that Caltrans and the California Transportation Commission are considering designating the projects recommended in the ITIP for funding. These projects will contribute immensely to the safe and efficient travel along Highways 41 and 46. Earlier this year, I wrote Caltrans and expressed my ongoing concerns about the safety of Highways 41 and 46. In 2017 alone, there have been numerous fatal accidents that have claimed the lives of 10 people on these highways. One particular stretch of Highway 46 has become known as Blood Alley for its danger over the years. Of particular concern is the area near the intersection of Highways 41 and 46, also called the Y. According to interagency recommendations, the current rate of fatalities and injuries at the intersection of routes 41 and 46 is 3 times the state average. In fact, from March to May in this year alone, there were 6 fatal collisions at or near the Y. This is not surprising, as this intersection features an unprotected left turn into oncoming 55-mile-an-hour traffic, as well as several dash passing areas. Simply put, this area is a clear and present danger to travelers. Moreover, these highways have tremendous economic and cultural importance to millions of Californians. They are the corridor between the Central Coast and Central Valley, connecting the entire Central Valley with the coast. Each year, millions of travelers use these roads to travel to and from the coast. Each year, millions of vehicles use these roads to ship produce and other goods all over California. The economy of the Central Coast is highly dependent on tourism and agriculture, among other industries. Ensuring the timely completion of these projects will pay economic and public safety dividends for many decades to come. As you may know, I have been working with Caltrans and the California Highway Patrol to encourage and facilitate the implementation of short-term safety measures near the Y, including increased speed enforcement during busy travel times. Caltrans recently installed rumble strips on Highway 41 near the Y to deter unsafe passing and increase driver alertness. These measures may reduce the frequency and severity of collisions, but in the long run, only separating the lanes of travel, as the draft ITIP contemplates, can ensure safety at this critical juncture. It is time to bring these important roads up to 21st century safety and efficiency standards. For these reasons, I fully support these projects and look forward to working with Caltrans to make sure that the State Transportation Improvement Program, STIP, reaches its goal for passenger and cargo transportation safety on all California roads. I greatly appreciate your consideration of this letter and ask that you adopt the draft plan. Sincerely, Jordan Cunningham, 35th Assembly District.
Thank you for coming out today. Through the chair, if I may. May I have the hard copy of the letter?
Of course.
I'd like to follow up with the Assemblyman.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I also
Another
want to
question.
thank you for your comments today, and I would also like to work with Carl to follow up with the Assemblyman on this one. I think it's very important that we appreciate his support of the funding that's going into these projects and for your district, and we'd like to delve down a little bit deeper with him on this.
That's great. I'll relay the
Please let him know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments for Aaron or questions? No? Then we'll move to Stacy. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am the executive director of both the Altamont Corridor commuter rail trains and the San Joaquin Intercity Rail Service trains that run up the spine of the state. And in our rail group, we've worked very hard with Caltrans and CalSTA and the freight railroad partners to sort of hone in, argue, wrestle about what the best projects for the STIP are. The STIP funding leverages significant local and regional funding, and it expands the ability to deliver rail to more communities in the state. We, through the work at Caltrans and CalSTA, we've had to focus on making better connections between the systems. For a lot of years, systems were expanded, but not the connections weren't focused on. These territories sort of made an impediment to riders because they couldn't easily transfer between systems. So we focused on that. We have focused on the equivalent of a rail shop program because there has been STIP investment in the rail network that needs to be protected just like on the state highway system. So we want to make sure we're protecting the prior money. And we're solving the first and last mile problem, which really makes people like me not want to take rail. You don't know how you're going to get to the station. You don't know how you're going to get away. You don't know if you'll have a convenient vehicle to get to where you really want to go. And so thankfully, with the advent of Uber and Lyft and a little more innovation on the part of the bus companies, the first mile and last mile is well on its way to getting solved. My region in particular, we're focused on improving service to Sacramento. It's crazy to think that our government center has one daytime train to the capital when east-west service has 15 daily trains. And so the fact that that has been neglected, never fear, we are here, we're going to get some more service to our state capital. We also focus on making those connect with trains to the Bay Area, both the Silicon Valley, the Oakland, San Francisco area. These trains that run up the spine need to connect wherever we're running east and west. It's just ridiculous that we miss those connections. The congestion and the parking issues in the urban areas, even Sacramento now, if you can find a place to park, which is very difficult around the capital and generally you're late for your testimony or meeting, it's getting near $28 a day in Sacramento. Now that we're used to that in San Jose and San Francisco, but when you start seeing that in Sacramento, it really, you start understanding why people are looking around for another mode of travel. You just can't bear the expense and the time associated with trying to get through and get a place to park. I don't think rail is the only solution. I am a highway gal. This is my other hat. But I think it is a part. It is a part because people are looking for other ways to travel. It's also a mode that can be expanded through capacity using new technology. We don't have to gobble up the farmland with new lanes. There's a lot we can do with improving technology, which we know is just going to expand into the future. The new state rail plan done by Caltrans, it lays out the desired options and the interconnectivity that is needed on the network. And the STIP funding is a first part and a critical part for funding that total network that allows people the interregional mobility that you're talking about in the STIP. So thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Any questions for Stacy?
I just want to thank and recognize Stacy. She has been a key leader in our region and state on the ACE train and other efforts, and has just done a tremendous job over the years. So thanks for all the good work you do. If I don't do that for everyone, it doesn't mean you're not terrific.
Bruce was wondering.
Yes. Well, good afternoon, Chair and board members. Thank you very much. My name is Jose Ramirez. I'm the city manager of the city of Livingston, and I'm here on behalf of my council and my community. Just wanted to make some quick little comments. We're definitely in favor of the ARPTIP funding for the bottleneck. We're basically where the bottleneck is, and we certainly appreciate all the work that you guys have been doing along the 99 corridor. And so my council wanted me to, extend their appreciation for this now being before you, and that we support it, and we look forward to that project getting going. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? No? We'll move on to Matt Fell, followed by Kenneth Cow.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Matt Fell. I'm with the Merced County Association of Governments. And first of all, I wanted to thank Caltrans for their early and active consultation on ITIP development. It was a really pleasurable process this cycle. I'm here in support of the same project that Jose was just talking about, Livingston Widening Project. And that project, as Jose mentioned, is 6 lanes on either side, and we've got about 7 miles of 4-lane. So there's actually 2 projects, which would widen it from 4 to 6 lanes. The southbound was in the prior STIP, was deleted, so that's being proposed for restoration. So that's great to see. And then also new is the proposal to add the northbound. And we're strongly in favor of that, and we're contributing our RIP funds in order to make those projects go at the same time, because we think that makes a great deal of sense to do both those things at the same time. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, we support the ITIP as is. Thanks.
Do we hear any questions? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Kenneth Cow with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. I wanted to lend our region support for the proposed programming of $18 million for the San Mateo US 101 Managed Lanes project. That would be coming out of the Advanced Project Delivery Program Delivery Element, APDE, part of the STIP. And it's also leveraging a big chunk of local funds to deliver the final design. We're hoping to line that up to compete for SP1 funds in this first cycle. So again, thank you very much, and happy to answer any questions.
I think I'm out of the public comment requests, so my fellow commissioners, do you have any thoughts? Paul?
Yep. So Bruce, if you can come back up. So I would like to, in the prelude, or the there is under section 2, under the summary of the 2018 ITIP project list proposal, in section 2 of restoring project components deleted during the 2016 STIP cycle. There is an item in Merced on Highway 152 where it's proposed to put $1 million in. I think it would be safe to say that these are planning dollars, and there is some, how do I say this correctly? There is some uncertainty as to the will to move forward after the planning's done, and so there's a great risk of planning documents becoming stale in this project. On the other side of the coin, there's another project that I think got left out that I would challenge you to investigate to see whether it should be, where this $1 million may be better spent. Also in District 10, when the State Route 108 Sonora bypass was put in, there was supposed to be $1 million for restorative improvements on Mono Way. After it was done, those funds, my understanding is those funds were dropped in previous cycles. It would be great to restore. I think it was about the same amount of money. It would be great to restore those funds. Those are funds that could be programmed right away and get to use and not finish the improvements that were originally supposed to be a part of SR 108 Sonora bypass in Tuolumne County. So if you could investigate that and come back to me with some answers at the next meeting, I'd appreciate that.
We will do so.
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate it.
Quite welcome.
I think also Caltrans is soliciting comments. So hopefully your colleagues representing those as well are commenting.
Okay. If I may make one more remark in regards to following up on the Highway 99 projects, since we just had talked about Livingston. Proposition 1B had the 99 bond program that had $1 billion for making investments, which was not adequate to completely finish the 6-laning of Highway 99 between I-5 and the Sacramento region. We are, through some of the investments we're making through this program, we're helping to close some of those gaps. And I know the Trade Corridor Improvement Fund, TCIF, also under that under Proposition 1B was doing the same. So again, this is building on that strategy of multiple funding sources targeting these corridors and making the improvements so that we can get some of these things done and eliminate these bottlenecks. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes, thank you. I think we're just about done, right?
We're just about finished.
I just wanted to, Madam Chair, with your permission, to make sure that we're all aware of the elephant in the room here. We have some wonderful projects that are coming to us, and it is because our legislature, in their wisdom, passed SB1. Our gas taxes are going up November 4th. It's a substantial amount of money. There's a lot of angst in various communities around the state about that happening. And yet, here right before you today are some projects that have been waiting very, very patiently for funding. Not new capacity, but just improvements that need to get done because they've been on the books for a long time. This is a great, great opportunity for us. And every single day I get emails about campaigns to undo this good work. So I sit here as a commissioner just wanting to say state the obvious, that these projects don't get done if we can't keep this funding in place. And it's incumbent on all of us to remind our family, our friends, our community on what the downsides are of that happening. So thank you all for very, very much for your comments and great information and the hope that we can actually make something good really happen in this state that has been way, way long overdue. And let's not lose this opportunity. We have a great window, but as I said, I get nervous every day when I get another email about trying to undo the funding source that is critically needed to help our state move and particularly your community move. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I would just add to that while we are afforded the opportunity to restore the projects, I can't imagine what votes we would have been taking
Oh,
to
it'd be a very
reduce
different
fund
meeting.
estimates if we hadn't had our legislature and our administration work to really get us a reliable funding source. So I want to echo my fellow commissioners and thank everybody who participated, those who are watching. The Southern California hearing will be next Tuesday morning. I believe it's at 10 a.m. Will and Patricia down at Metro will be hosting everyone, so I would encourage everyone to come out and help us learn from all of you. So with that, meeting is